Cheers. We hand this to Jason.
Yeah, we have not.
There you go. Jason. Pass the bottle. Jason just made some friends.
Mine.
So my name is Daniel G. Harmann, and I've been playing music since 2001. My first record came out. For the last 7 years, I've been playing in a band called The Trouble Starts, and we've played a bunch of shows and toured a lot, and a majority of those shows have been with a band called XOXO, and Bill plays in XOXO. He played bass and now plays organ and piano. And once the Fastback Sessions kind of reached out about doing this, I was like, all right, well, Trouble Starts are dead. How am I going to do this? And I had some new songs, but I didn't really want to just play acoustic because personally, I think that's really boring. Like, I don't like going to acoustic shows because they're boring. So I wanted to utilize the space and utilize the piano that was here. And I was like, who do I know that plays piano really well that I don't really know that well, and going to try something new? And so I reached out to Bill, and he was down to give it a shot. I started listening to music and really loving like hip hop and oddly enough like punk rock during high school, and really got into Fugazi and Dinosaur Jr. And I grew up in a small town, and I only got stuff that like my cousin would send me. So he would send me stuff from K-Rock, like Jed the Fish was a DJ, and he would send me a bunch of shit from like he would do like this reverse countdown. And so there was always cool stuff on there. Dinosaur Jr. was on there, and my cousin was really into Morrissey, and so that's how I kind of got into Morrissey.
So I started playing music when I was about 5 years old. Kind of the typical way a lot of 5-year-olds get introduced to music, through piano lessons.
Got me on that one.
Yeah. I was obsessed as a kid with my parents' old Motown records. So basically anything, from Motown or Stax or, my dad's old Miles Davis and Led Zeppelin and, the Who records. And so that's a lot of what I listened to growing up. And also grew up in Seattle. So, of course, in the early 90s, it was like Melvins, Poison Idea, Nirvana, Tad. Like,
God, I wish I had been around during that time. That's the reason I moved here.
Right, yeah. But it was everywhere. Like, everybody.
But how old were you, like, in the early 90s?
So I was, like, in my, I think probably, I was born in 1980, so...
Were you old enough could you go to shows?
I could,
like,
all ages shows? I could go to shows. I could go to all ages shows, but my parents were not cool with that. So I missed kind of a lot of the shows, but I mean, it was just everywhere. So, I mean, that's what... God. And I wasn't a guitar player as much as I wanted to be, but, I listened to a lot of stuff, and I'd always kind of, as a keyboard player and a piano player, always gravitated towards listening on recordings to, like... How did John Paul Jones get that kind of cool sound on No Quarter for Led Zeppelin? Or how did Pete Townsend do that cool thing on Won't Get Fooled Again? And I always kind of spent a lot of time just trying to figure out how to get those sounds out.
Well, I don't know who any of those people are, but I really liked grunge.
Yeah, there you go. That's cool, man. Grunge is cool. Yeah, I've always thought you were like a very grungy person.
Thank you. No, it's just because I grew up in a small town, and that was just the shock that I think that everyone needed. And if you're separated from it, like, you were in it, so you're like, oh, of course that makes sense. But for me, it was like, holy shit, something completely new.
One truth is so sure, I'll leave it up to you, but you won't let go at all. One truth is so frightened, I'm young again with you in the soft snowfall. This is you on the back road. This is you. Finally letting go tonight. This is you. On the back road. This is you. Finally letting go tonight.
One thing I've noticed when playing with Bill is that I've been singing the songs that I've been playing for a long time differently because I play just a lot of guitar and I hear things one way, but then there's some subtle things that he'll play that bring out a different melody idea. And so since my songs are so melody driven, it's nice to be able to kind of shift from what I'm normally comfortable with. And that's kind of rare because I've been playing in a loud, huge band for so long that I miss a lot of the subtlety. And it's nice to have that back.
Again with you in the soft snowfall. This is you on the backyard. This is you. Finally letting go tonight. This is you. On the backyard. This is you. Finally letting go tonight.
Thank you. Like I said, I grew up listening to a lot of hip hop, and I use that term loosely because I loved like white boy hip hop, like Tribe Called Quest and De La Soul and stuff. But I also liked Vanilla Ice. So the first show I ever went to was MC Hammer and Vanilla Ice, and I actually went to that tour twice.